I'm Dean McKnight, and welcome to another edition of Taking Back Our Neighborhoods, a community outreach program of Operation Our Town. Today we're going to talk about a very specific portion of Operation Our Town's mission. We're going to talk about prevention, and in a rather different way. One of the roundtables that Operation Our Town has, among several, is a roundtable on early childhood education. You think, wow, how early do we have to start educating young people about drugs? But it goes further than that. And today we have 4 exciting guests to talk about those opportunities in our community and how those opportunities are being met. I'm going to start on my left with Rodney. Rodney, introduce yourself and tell us what you do.
Sure. Good morning. My name is Rodney Green, and I'm a retired educator and recently retired from the Spring Cove School District as a superintendent of schools. I've had over 38 years of a career in public education, everything from classroom teacher to guidance counselor, school psychologist, and special education director. So I've had a very fulfilled career in education and enjoy working now with the Roundtable.
Rodney, I also remember that you were one of the leaders in spearheading the, what was the name of the program in the Roaring Spring School?
The Digital School District program.
Digital School District, yes. Ahead of its time.
Yes, we were one of 3 school districts. Very fortunate and very honored to be selected for that.
Congratulations. We're fortunate to have you with our roundtable.
Thank you.
Donita?
Hi, my name is Donita Hord. I am the director at Begin With Us Childcare and Preschool here in Altoona. We've been in business for 20 years now, and I've been with the company for 17.
That's wonderful. And how many children are enrolled in your program?
We have about 275 children enrolled.
Wow, that's wonderful. Stephanie, your turn.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Doliveira. I'm currently the Vice President of Human Resources at Sheetz Incorporated, but I'm involved in this mission to help ensure that children get early education through something called the Early Learning Investment Commission, a commission that was started by the governor of Pennsylvania, and I feel very honored and privileged to have this as a mission of mine personally, but also associated with Sheetz.
Yes, good organization. Dan?
Good morning. I'm president of the Roaring Spring Blank Book Company in Roaring Spring, Pennsylvania, and have been there for 38 years. But today, the reason I'm here is I've been involved for the past almost 30 years with Child Advocates of Blair County, which is the grantee for the Head Start program here in Blair County, and am also a member of the Early Learning Investment Commission with Stephanie. So I really do have a heart for early learning.
And Dan, you've been very active in the community with the Altoona Blair County Development Corporation and many other groups. One of the great things about these roundtables, all the roundtables of Operation Our Town, is the people that make up those roundtables. They're not just involved in one segment of our community, they're pretty much involved in all segments of it. You know, that's what it's all about, Operation Our Town. And I guess when you live in a town, you just get involved in a lot of things, especially in our areas. Let me start with Rodney. Why was this roundtable established and how?
Sure. Dean, Operation Our Town has, as you've said, many roundtables, and the Blair County Chamber of Commerce likewise has a number of committees, and they have a committee called the Basics, which is Business and Schools Investing Cooperatively in Solutions. And the Basics Committee has been looking at how can they better serve the mission of K-12 education in Blair County to improve the workforce. And as part of that mission, they also invited some leaders, such as Dan and Stephanie, to come in and talk and present to other business leaders in our county about the importance of early childhood education. So through that connection of Basics, we were able to also hook up with what we felt was a shared vision with Operation Our Town of creating this roundtable process.
Rodney, you know, we assume that everybody knows how to raise a child. You know, my wife and I never had any children, so consequently, I was in the business world, but I would be completely void of any information on what we should be doing to make this education better for young people. And Dan, you represent the Chamber of Commerce. How did you guys get involved in this process?
Well, I actually got involved at Rodney's request because of the Basics Committee. I think, as he pointed out, Basics was a committee formed as part of the Chamber to be a connection between the business community and the educational community in Blair County in order to assure that there was a partnership there, because ultimately today's students will be tomorrow's future employees, and it was very important that we have that partnership. And because of my involvement with early learning, it was very critical from my perspective that early learning become a part of the Basics subcommittee, because of the critical nature of getting started in that 0 to 5 year age bracket that is so crucial. And many people are not aware of that. And so that's really what got me involved with the Basics group, and the subcommittee, the early learning subcommittee, became part of that.
Dan, I heard you make a statement once about young people and how early their personalities are formed and their outlook. Do you remember that statement?
I do remember that statement, and I think really we were talking about you. We were actually talking about you, Dean, and you had made a statement about yourself, and I made the comment, Dean, I'm sure that when you were in that 0 to 5 age range, you were smiling, friendly, and everybody liked you. Mm-hmm. And I certainly know from my own sons, who are now in their 30s, that their basic personalities carried through their entire lives. And that started that early in their life.
That's fascinating. So very early on, we see indications that somebody may be having problems, or we should be seeing
that's
indications.
That's very accurate.
And Stephanie, what's your connection with all of this?
Right. So we've formed a great alliance through working through both the Early Learning Investment Commission, the Chamber through the Basics Committee, and now Operation Our Town. Research has basically shown that if you invest in young children at a very early age, that there is really a likelihood that they will not be involved in criminal activity as they grow up and become adults. And so there was a natural connection between investing in young children and preventing crime, which is really the work of Operation Our Town. And so that natural partnership was formed between the Basics Subcommittee through the Chamber and Operation Our Town. And we'll talk more about how investing in young children helps to prevent crime a little bit later in the segment.
Well, thank you. Donita, we heard Dan talk about early development. You probably see that firsthand.
Absolutely. We take children at our center as early as 6 weeks, and you can see as they grow and move from infant to toddler to preschool, the development, as you mentioned earlier, any issues maybe that the children might not be meeting developmental milestones, you see that pretty early, and then are able, hopefully, to be able to get them supports to fix those early in their life. But Dan is right in saying that, the personality and everything that goes into making a productive and successful adult starts 0 to 5.
Wow. Like I said, I hope you're learning as much as I am out there, folks, because this is terrific. I'm going to back to Stephanie now. We were talking about this early development, but you're listed as something of an expert on brain research. The reason why I asked that is because I remember my boss saying to me one time, Dean, why don't you use your brain? It's the little things that count.
Well, I'm definitely not an expert on brain research, but I've learned a lot in my time on the Investment Commission and how it's connected in the end to business. What we do know through research done at Harvard University and many other places that are have many very intelligent neuroscientists, which I am not. What we know is that a child's brain is 85% developed by the age of 3 and 90% developed by the age of 5. That was startling to me, not only as a parent, but as a business leader, that young child's brain is almost fully developed before they go to school, before they enter formalized school. When I grew up, Dean, I didn't go to preschool. I just went to school in kindergarten. And I think what we've learned over the years is how critical it is to provide young children under the age of 5, birth to age 5, with quality experiences that helps that brain to develop. Things like language, logic, problem solving, even self-esteem. It is all developed within that first 5 years of the child's life. That to me was just really interesting information to learn. And as a business leader, it's critical that we're focusing on these young people in that 0 to 5 age range, because they will eventually become our workforce.
Wow.
What we also know is that when a child is denied those quality experiences from age 0 to 5, the brain can suffer permanent damage. And so the time is critical. The time is now. I think it's been just eye-opening for me as a business leader, not as an expert on brain development.
Right. We're going to explore more of that in our second segment. I want to go back now and talk about the subject of the very young people in our communities and just kind of wing it a little bit. Donita, tell me about, I see young children coming to schools, some of them dressed in the very latest fashions, right out of Gap or Navy or Old Navy. I hate to say the word old because people think I'm referring to myself. But I see, and then I see other children that just don't seem to have the same opportunities. And you see this, don't you?
Definitely, definitely. Which is why part of our mission is to make sure that every child has access to a quality early learning experience. That can be difficult, as you know, in 19 states and the District of Columbia, a year of preschool for a 4-year-old can cost the same as a year of college tuition at a public state university. That's a lot of money, and as you said, there is a disparity. There is a gap in our community economically. So for some people, it is very difficult for them to be able to afford the quality care.
Rodney, you actually saw this in the school district and how it played out through the whole process. What was your experience?
Yes, very much so. And just the kind of go along with what Donita's been saying, we would see children entering school, many with preschool experiences, but some without. In fact, like in Spring Cove, for example, only 75% of our children would come in with a preschool experience of any type. And even at 75%, I'm not able to tell you exactly how many of them would come from what I would call high quality educational center type programs. But we saw those differences in children entering school, and we knew that our mission, starting with a child even in kindergarten, that some children were already playing catch up to other children. So that's all the more, I think, impressed on me and many other educators why we need to get and extend our dialogue into this pre-K world and make sure that, whether it be through private centers and a partnership between education and businesses, we really need to help parents understand that they are making some very important choices early on in their children's lives.
You know, folks, the roundtables are important to our operation, the operation of Operation Our Town. But you know what's even more important is your involvement. You can get involved. I'm sure that there are children out there that need role models. I'm sure there are young people out there that maybe just need that grandparent kind of influence. Maybe you help as a volunteer, you do something. Maybe you just send a check. There's nothing wrong with that. But all these things have to help young people grow. Donita, do you have a family?
I do. I have 2 children, a 2-year-old and a 12-year-old. And really, I got involved with early learning many years ago before I had children. But what I've learned over time is just this investment in children is just so important at this 0 to 5-year-old age. And I want every child in Blair County to have the same opportunities as my 2 children have. And that's what's important to me about being involved in this mission.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Each of you, we all come from different Dan, were you born and raised in Roaring Spring?
I was, yes.
So that's a little more, I want to say country. It's
rural, certainly compared to Altoona.
You know, well, you know, and if you were in New York City, Altoona would be rural. I guess everything's relative, but we all have different experiences, and yet it's apparent that we've all had some success in our life, or we wouldn't be here. And we probably owe that success to other people reaching out and helping hand. And that's what we're here today to talk about, folks. Maybe how you can reach out a helping hand. And if nothing else, just recognize the hands that are already out there. We're going to be back in a couple minutes and pursue more of the mental aspects of this question. Thank you.
Overlooking the city of Altoona, the Booker T. Washington Park had lost its luster. With that in mind, Operation Our Town and the Central Blair Recreation and Park Commission, in collaboration with the NAACP, set out to give back to the community.
The court was in bad shape. It needed some new backboards, rims. There was cracks. There was grass growing up onto the court itself.
New additions to the park will include a renovated basketball court, playground for families and friends, fitness stations, and a walking path.
I can't wait till everything is done so I can bring my grandkids to play in the playground.
Kids can use it for, for whatever their imagination brings them.
Members of the community already have noticed a difference.
Stuff for the kids to do to keep them out of trouble.
Welcome back. Dan, earlier we were discussing some of the challenges that young people face. You're with Head Start. Tell me about some of your experiences.
Well, Dean, I think one of the important numbers that people should understand, data points, statistics, is that our Head Start program in Blair County serves 480 at-risk children, meaning they come from homes that qualify under the poverty income guidelines. And we have waiting lists for children to get into that program. So I think a statistic that many people may not know is that there are over 7,000 children in Blair County in that 0 to 5 age range. And of that 7,000, there is I think it's between 30 and 40% qualify as at risk, meaning their household incomes do not exceed 300% of the poverty level.
So these young people are considered at risk not because of criminal backgrounds or anything,
right,
but simply because of their economic income of the family.
The economic circumstances of the family, correct.
Is that fair?
No, that's certainly an issue that is significant to the problem we're discussing, because those children even more so need quality early learning if we are going to have a dramatic impact on these points that we're discussing. Graduation from high school, not becoming part of a criminal activity in your lifetime, and being able to go on to some level of secondary education that will prepare you effectively for the workforce.
Yeah, I grew up in a family that my father was a railroader and laid off a lot, and if I were looking back on it, I would say that we were probably economically disadvantaged, but we were happy. We weren't stealing hubcaps and doing things like that, and so I just don't know how you address all these problems.
Well, I think it's a significant statistic, Dean, and I'll ask you this question. Was your mother at home with you?
Yes. Yes.
The significant statistic that as society has changed is that because of the economic demands on families, there are so many families where the mother is in the workforce, and that's why those children need to be in some form of daycare situation that we're basically saying needs to be quality early learning.
I can prove my mother was home. I still have the black and blue marks. Rodney, how does this affect the overall we keep hearing about this literacy issue, that young people can't read and they're not graduating with sufficient skills. Tell us about that aspect of.
Sure. I mentioned earlier that, again, with some children coming into school already lacking some of these skills, we're already starting in kindergarten with literacy skills, trying to catch children up. We know, again, based on experience and a lot of research, that children come to school, and our job is hopefully to help them to learn to read. And if we do our job well, those children are going to learn to read by 3rd grade. From that point on, they're really now reading to learn. They become much more independent. And that's our goal, and I think, again, that's a partnership with families and the schools. But we recognize that if the children can't get to that level by that time, that's that literacy gap that we're talking about. And not being able to read puts you at a disadvantage, or not being able to read well, comprehend what you read, feel confident in what you do, have those social skills, those soft skills, so to speak, to go along with basic knowledge. That makes a big difference in how you proceed and go through school. And again, we see this at that early part of the brain development, that stimulation, that constant interaction with other individuals, whether it be in play, structured play, whether it be with your family. All those things we can see make a big difference prior to coming to school. And when the children come to school, it makes a big difference when they're put in now into a much more structured learning situation.
Rodney, you were the superintendent of the school district, is that correct?
Yes.
How do you answer that that comment that we're graduating students from high school who can't read?
Well, first I'll say I think we've always graduated some students from school who didn't read.
Okay.
And I'm not using that as an excuse, but I think that's always been true. And the other thing is, historically, our graduation rates have never been higher. So we really, I think, have done a much better job of keeping students in school who in the past may have either dropped out, have had other, whether they had to go to work for their family to help support their families. And we're seeing also, kind of parallel to that, is a change in the economy, local, state, global, where those kind of jobs just aren't out there anymore. The people who couldn't read or who didn't have those kind of skills just aren't absorbed into our economies the way that they were. And again, that's that partnership between businesses and schools. We have to do a better job of having those students understand you've got to have basic skills. You've got to have great literacy skills. You've got to have technical skills if you want to succeed and get into the workforce of the future. And so I think, you know, it's there's no doubt about it. I'll be the first person to tell you we can always do better, and that's our goal, is to always do better. But I think again, what makes the American educational system unique to just about any other in the world is we say everyone has an opportunity. Everyone can succeed. If you work hard, you come in, we're going to help you. We don't separate you from other people early on in your educational experience. If you work hard, you're going to have that opportunity.
Rodney, thank you. You can certainly be proud of your record, and as can the community be proud of what you were able to do. And I will have to tell you that I can't think of an instance with any of our local schools or school districts that where we say these people are just out of control or whatever. I mean, I see the newspapers, the Bellwood Annis is doing things, Tyrone is, Northern Blair County is doing things, and all the school districts, Altoona School District, the things they've done. I'm sure there's challenges out there. Can you see that very early, Donita, when children are coming in? Can you see a discrepancy in those that?
Absolutely. It's very easy to pinpoint a child who comes from a family who maybe reads to them quite often versus one that doesn't. And it tends to manifest itself, you know, pretty easily, or pretty early rather. But as Rodney said, you know, he was talking about the relationship between schools and business. The relationship that we develop as early care providers with the families has a tremendous impact on, you know, how well the children are able to do it at a young age.
That must be fascinating to us. And you guys can see these young people out in the community after they've graduated and see what they've accomplished or didn't, and hopefully they've made great accomplishments. Let's get back, Dan, and Stephanie. But Dan, the skills gap, when you're graduating from school And what are we finding in the workplace
Well,
out there?
I think the what has happened, and particularly in the last 15 years, the requirement for first of all, soft skills are important. You're always going to be a member of a team. Today, when you get into the workforce, you have to be able to interact as a team member. You certainly have to have reading skills because you're going to be required to understand your job description. And in many cases, it has technical aspects to it that without that ability, you would not be able to succeed. And I think the big problem is that when you really look at it, today's 0 to 5-year-olds, those 7,000 kids, 65% of them are going to be entering our workforce here locally when they're 18 to 20 years old. And if those kids don't have these skills that we're talking about, they won't be able to succeed in the jobs that we have available, in which case businesses either cannot succeed here or they have to go outside to bring employees in.
Stephanie, is that kind of your experience at Sheetz?
Absolutely. So we give every prospective employee an assessment, and they're assessed on their ability to read, because they'll have to conduct training and to be able to do the job. They have to be able to demonstrate the soft skills, because we're a service industry and we're providing customer service. And so those soft skills of being able to listen, being able to communicate well, being able to problem solve. Our customers expect that our employees will solve some of their problems, at least their immediate problems that they have at Sheetz. Yeah. But those are all skills that are developed very early on, and we're looking for that in our future workforce. Not to mention we have many other more skilled jobs that require a 4-year degree. And so this is truly a topic about our future workforce.
You've both mentioned the ability to get along with people and the ability to interact. And I'm going to tell you that my wife and I eat out a lot. This says nothing about her cooking in case she's watching, but we eat out a lot. And some servers are just outstanding. They make the dining experience wonderful. And some, you just wonder how they're ever going to survive. And I think, wow, that's just become a critical skill.
That is a critical
Dealing
skill.
with other people. These aren't machines. You got to smile and say hello and occasionally feel sorry for something. I hope we can compete with that. And the other thing I want to mention, recently I heard from 2 different employers about drugs. They said they're ready to hire people. They bring them in and say, you're going to take your drug test, and they get up and walk out. Is that tell me about your experiences with that.
It's very common. We do a pre-employment drug screen at Sheetz for all positions, and we have a large percentage of folks who have made it through the entire assessment to that point and either decide not to show up for the drug screen because they're afraid they're not going to pass it, or just flatly fail it. It's astounding to me.
That's amazing. That is absolutely amazing. I'm going to, bong, how often do you have to get hit in the head? You can have a doctorate. If you can't pass the drug test, you're not going to get hired. And yet, I still see comments from people on television saying everybody does it. Folks, everybody doesn't do it. I mean, come on, let's be real about this. There's standards that have to be obtained in the workplace. And I was in the banking business, and I will tell you that on not a lot, but most of the occasions we had with employee theft had to do with the fact that they were having drug problems. I mean, can we see how all this is interrelated? You're a young child, you're coming up through the system. Maybe it's the easy way, maybe it's the party scene, who knows what it is. But at some point, you're going to have to pay the piper. And so we've got opportunities out there waiting for you. How many people do you think you hire every year at Sheetz?
We hire between 7,000 and 8,000 people every year.
Every year?
That's right.
Folks, I'm putting my application in because they put me behind that counter with their MTOs. I'm going to gain 40 pounds, and Sheetz is going to be declaring bankruptcy. Dan, what's your experience with that?
Well, we're certainly not hiring at the level that Sheetz is, but there is always turnover, and so we are certainly always hiring year in and year out. And I just have to say that when young people make the decision to participate in drugs, they are making a decision that can turn their life upside down forever.
Forever. That's right.
Just that simple.
Donita, we had a guest on here a couple weeks ago that said that children were coming to school, and I'm sure that includes small children, and the drug sniffing dogs went to them not because they were doing drugs, because the parents were doing drugs. Can you see any of that in your business?
It's unfortunate, Dean, but yes, we can now. We've never had any experiences with drug sniffing dogs, thank God.
Oh, sure, they're too young. They would think they were pets. The kids would be all over them.
But we have had instances where there was drug activity in the home. Yes.
How sad.
Very sad.
Rodney, you were in the school district. You've got to be closer to that than...
Yeah, absolutely. I will say probably the biggest change that I've witnessed over a long educational career was very much so the need to provide more and more support to families, because you had parents who were involved with drugs, and that was impacting the children, whether it be the children were just exposed to the actual usage of drugs, or that some of their basic needs were being denied because they were being diverted to help pay for those drugs for the family. So we see the need for interventions and provide those in public schools. But again, it creates a huge deficit in that child's life.
Wow. And this is the kind of things that you talk about at the roundtable and discuss answers to the problems. Are there answers to some of these problems?
Well, I'll say this.
Well, our answer is that you need to start in that 0 to 5 age range. If you allow all our children to get a quality education and graduate from high school and have the ability to go on to some level of secondary education and be successful in the workforce and in life, that will be what will keep them away from those situations.
It's about investing from the very beginning.
From the beginning.
What we know is that investing later in life just doesn't give as much of a return on that investment, but it's about investing at those very critical early years to prevent crime in the future, to prepare them to become great employees, to prepare them to become productive citizens. And so it's about investing in our future.
You know what disappoints me the most is that for some reason our society has developed this aversion to, like, if I was a school teacher I would go nuts, because it's like you can't hug anybody anymore. Come on, folks. I always thought love was the answer to everything. I skinned my knee, I got a hug. I got in a fight. My mother gave me a hug and squeezed me and said, don't do that again. But there was love there. Is that still, there's still love in our community, isn't there?
Well, I think this is about providing love in a different way. And that love is loving these children enough now that we're going to provide them with quality educational experiences. And every child in Blair County should have this opportunity to be loved in this way.
I'll tell you one of my greatest thrills. I always carry $1 bills. And when I'm out somewhere and I see young children and they're just laughing, having a good time, or smiling, or have done anything, said please and thank you, I give them $1 bills. And I want to tell you something. I hope it means as much to them as it does to me, because I want them to know that their actions are appreciated. And even by strangers, that everything you do in this life, you're making an image to somebody, somewhere. We're going to be back in just a minute and wrap up our segment, and we're going to talk a little more to Donita about young people and what her experiences are. Thank you. Come right back.
Operation Our Town is reaching out into our community every day, helping groups like the Gloria Gates Foundation. They received a grant in 2009 from Operation Our Town to help fund their program, which was established more than 10 years ago.
We now have children who've gone through our program and are out of high school, and they're young adults. and they're coming back and they're telling us the impact our after-school program had on them. So we know that we are reaching the kids.
The Gloria Gates Foundation prides itself on teaching the children lessons that will stay with them throughout their life.
When things get better in their life and they look back, then sometimes we get a note and say, I remember what you tried to teach me, thank you.
Operation Our Town, creating community-minded citizens for a better tomorrow.
Welcome back. Before we get started talking about the very young again, I think there's one more segment that we need to cover, and a very important segment, people that have really given maybe more than anybody. Dan, tell us about the military out there.
Well, Dean, there is a nonprofit organization that has been formed in our country by retired generals and admirals for the sole purpose of dealing with the fact that of the age range of individuals, both male and female, who could be joining the armed forces today, there's really only 25% of them that qualify, because the other 75% are either functionally illiterate, or they have a criminal record or some other mental problem that would disallow them from joining the military.
Wow, wait, 75%?
75% of today's young people that are in the age range to be enlisting in this
military.
In the military. So it is a huge problem, and these gentlemen and ladies who are at that high level and are part of this organization recognize how critical early learning is to begin the process of addressing that. Just like our future employees, our future military personnel are also going to benefit dramatically from investments in early learning. That's that 0 to 5 age range.
Wow, you can't even join the military without having the ability to read and write and
Absolutely.
do some things. And so when we see one of these veterans coming back from overseas or anywhere, we know that they were in the top. They were in the top 25% before they ever went in.
That is correct.
No wonder that makes them a prime target for people hiring employees.
Right.
They've already been pre-screened by the military.
Yep.
Wow, that's an amazing fact. Donita, let's get back to these very young people. Tell us about the state of education for the preschoolers. Is that what
Well, 0 to 5, so we're talking infants, toddlers, and preschool children. In the state of Pennsylvania, there are several different kinds of childcare. There are unregulated kinds, and there are regulated centers and programs. So when you're talking about unregulated, you're talking about care that would be provided by maybe a family member or a neighbor, and some religious-based programs are not regulated either, meaning they have no certification from the state. Whereas in regulated programs, you do have certification from the state. Examples of regulated programs would be a family daycare home or a group home or a child care center. And they are subject to an annual inspection by the state and unannounced inspections as well, to make sure that the programs are meeting the basic health and safety standards and requirements set forth by the state.
Tell me about, is that part like a lunch program and things? Is that included?
It's part of it, and in some programs, at our program, it is included, but not every program has to include the child and adult care food program.
I heard a gentleman at a meeting last week tell me that the Altoona Area School District has identified 45 homeless families with children enrolled in the Altoona Area School District. Do you but you don't see those homeless families, do you, in your program?
We have, yes,
really?
We have. We are aware of certain family situations that they may be transient for a time. Yes, it is possible, and that is even a bigger at-risk factor, as Dan was talking about earlier. That's an at-risk factor for children that makes it even more important for them to be involved in an early care program. When we talk about early care, for years now the definition of quality has been debated. How do you recognize quality? And in the state of Pennsylvania in 2002, as the result of a task force that was instituted, Governor Mark Schweiker instituted what is called the Keystone Stars program. It is administered through OCDEL, which is the Office of Child Development and Early Learning at the state level. And the Keystone Stars program, it's a tiered set of standards that allows providers to work through certain aspects of providing care, but they are tiered at different levels so that you're meeting different levels of qualities at different star levels. I often think of a hotel rating system. If you're staying at a 1-star hotel versus a 4-star hotel, there's a difference in services that are provided. There's a difference in the quality of your stay. So when you look at the Keystone Stars program, you're going to look at that similarly. And I think it's a fantastic tool for parents that when they're looking for a program, they can ask the provider, how many stars do you have? And some providers in Blair County will say we don't have any stars, and some providers in Blair County will say we have 4 stars. So there is a wide range available in the county.
I think it should be noted that a program that has no stars, that means they're not participating in the system, and a program that it would have 1 or 2 versus 3 or 4, that doesn't mean that that's a bad program. That just simply means they haven't met all the, we'll call it, upgraded criteria that a 3 or 4-star program has. And I think Donita's point about the hotel system, obviously a 4-star hotel has a lot of services that a 2-star hotel may not have. Doesn't mean your stay at the 2-star hotel would be a bad one, but the 4-star hotel has more options and opportunities for you. That's the same thing with our early learning.
Like Motel 6, they leave a light on for you. That's an upgrade.
That's right.
And that's fantastic. And you deal with these children on a daily basis.
Absolutely.
Get to hug them.
Absolutely. It's wonderful. And it's just interesting for me to hear the context by which my colleagues here are speaking. When you look at the Keystone Star standards and when you look at child development in general, everything that they're talking about, I'm just sitting here thinking about how, Stephanie's talking about the importance of the brain development. And every time you hug that child or you have a positive interaction with that child, 0 to 5, their dendrites are working, their brain is forming, and good things are happening in there, and good connections are being made. And as a Star 4 provider, I'm able to see the standards that are set forth by the state and how those little things work into there. We didn't start out as a STARS program. We worked our way up through the program, and it has truly increased the quality of what we're able to provide. And I will acknowledge what Dan is saying. There are many providers in Blair County that don't participate in the STARS program. It is a voluntary program, but when a parent is looking, they will know that there is a commitment to quality that is measured. It's able to be measured. So just might help make a difference in the decision-making process for the parent. When I think again about what Stephanie was saying, when you look at teacher qualifications, research has shown that is a huge indicator of quality. It's a critical part of development for the children. Statistics show too that if you have a lead teacher in a classroom that has a bachelor's degree in early childhood education, those outcomes for the children in that classroom are going to be higher than for maybe a classroom of children that don't have a degreed teacher in front of them every single day.
Dean, I'd like to share a real-life experience, if you don't mind.
No, please.
I had the opportunity to visit a high-level quality center here in Blair County, and on that particular day, there was a degreed teacher in the room who obviously was following a curriculum that she had developed well in advance. And the work that they were doing at that particular time was listening skills. And they had laminated cards, and one child would have a laminated card of an ear, and the other child had a laminated card of a mouth. When you had the ear, you were practicing listening. When you had the mouth, that was your chance to talk, and they would switch back and forth. And I've shared this story with whoever would listen to the story. But it's amazing to me how those skills that those children are learning at age 3 and 4 are so applicable to when they become adults. You have no idea how many times I would like to be able to give adults an ear card and a mouth card. But it's real life. It's real life skills. It's what they're learning in these quality centers.
Yeah, it's all about children. Dan, I'll bet Rodney that you miss those kids.
Absolutely.
From
I miss them every day. I miss them every day. And I'm fortunate to be a grandfather now, so I have a 3-year-old granddaughter and just had a brand new grandson born last week. But there's no doubt about it. That's the time to get to those children. I want to mention one other thing. We've been talking a lot about early programs. There's one population or one group of children that sometimes we forget about a little bit. Schools are also, many of our public schools, even though they don't have pre-K programs, they are involved in what's called the early intervention program. And just like Dan had mentioned about child advocates and Head Start, a number of children who have a disability. You know, life's not fair. Not all children are born necessarily with great health and all the skills necessary. And so that those early intervention programs help them get started. And again, parents have to be aware of that, but it's available to them. And the reason I mention that, Dean, is because we keep coming back to the investment factor. What most people don't realize, if your child is identified as needing some special educational help, and I spent a great part of my educational career working with that, we know that it costs 2.5 times as much to provide a quality educational program for a child who has some special needs, who has some special educational needs. And therefore, if we can, again, invest in these children early, get to them early, provide quality programs, we can be very cost effective later in their career. So I'm saying this out loud because we have dwindling resources. I mean, it's no secret we have very challenging state budgets, very challenging economic environment at times, and we do have to be good stewards of what's being given to us. So I think all the more so, now's the time to think about, and that's why I think, again, being a part of Operation Our Town, being a roundtable, we're getting that message across to people who we can get to more families, get back to those neighborhoods, and talk to them about those choices that they can make.
It's great to see the community getting behind a project like this. I guess if it weren't for things like Operation Roundtable, maybe each of you wouldn't have been knowledgeable of the other person's or the other group's role in these kind of things. And I'm sure there are things that you're not knowledgeable about. I'm going to give you a phone number now. Going to give you just a second to go and get a pen or a pencil. We've talked about a lot of things here. We talked about volunteering. We talked about schools. Maybe you know somebody that needs help. Maybe you need help. I'm going to give you the number for Contact Altoona. It's 946-9050, 946-9050. And if you call Contact Altoona, they can put you in the right direction to talk to somebody who might get you some help that you need. An Operation Roundtable like this, bringing people together, that's the part of the drug and law enforcement that we really don't think of too often. We see names in the paper and we hear about arrests and prosecutions, but treatment and prevention is maybe more important than all of that.
We'd like to eliminate those names.
Yes, wouldn't that be nice, Dan, if we could do that? And each of you have had a part in that. Stephanie, I'd like to give them your phone number, but your phone's going to be busy because I'm going to be calling every day, putting my application in to be a food tester, and we'll see how we go from there. Dan, you've had a lot. You seem to have a broad. You're the manager of a manufacturing plant, and yet you take time out to do these things. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Do you have a family, Dan?
I do. Have 2 sons and 5 grandchildren.
5 grandchildren. And how about you, Donita?
I do. I am married, and I have 2 children. I have a 13-year-old son and a 10-year-old daughter.
Wow. You know, folks, when you see things happening in the community and when you hear about things that are happening that are good, these are the people that make those things happen. And I want you to recognize them. Recognize all the volunteers that we have. Let me ask you a question, Rodney. After all of our conversations here, if you could change one thing, what would you change?
I just would like to see, I'm going to say out loud, parents become more involved with their child's upbringing and their education. I used to say often that as an educator to a parent, I'm here to help you educate your child. It's not the other way around. We're partners, and I would just like to see more parent involvement. And I realize the challenges that are there, but we're all products of families, I think. Our parents made sacrifices. They made some choices. And that's all I'm going to say is I think parents today, just asking them, keep making those good choices. And the best choice you can make is to be involved in your child's education as early as possible.
No, I agree. And Donita, how about you? If you could change one thing in the system, anything.
I would have to say that I would like to see more financial support for the early care community. You know, as Rodney mentioned, we all know that times are tough and the state budget's tough, but some of our programming relies on budget money from the state. And so I would have to say that I would like to see more state money, more money, you know, into programs like pre-K counts and Head Start and the early intervention programming too, to help the youngest of our citizens.
Does it ever make you mad when you read or hear the news and they're talking about the budget cuts, and the first thing they talk about are things that seem to mean the most to the people?
Definitely, and I'm on a few other committees statewide that really help to direct public policy when it comes to early childhood, and it's a fight every year. It's a fight. So we do what we can and we make the best with what we're given, but ultimately it would be nice to be able to have a little more resources.
Absolutely, absolutely. Stephanie, how about you? If you could change one thing in society, what would you change?
Well, I think for locally, for our community to understand how critical it is to be paying attention to our youngest, to be investing in these very small children, because it's truly our future. I think that it's an afterthought today. I think that everyone's so busy doing whatever they are doing to make life work that they forget about the young children. But if we don't invest in these small children, it will definitely pay, both either positive or negative in the future, and I want it to be positive.
Absolutely. Dan, how about you?
Well, I think I would affirm what Stephanie is saying. I think my wish would be that all of Blair County would at least hear the statistics that we were talking about today and believe them, because it ultimately takes an entire community to address the issue we're talking about. And if that can happen, we'll be very happy about where we live.
You know, when I heard the story of Operation Our Town, quite frankly, I didn't realize that this entire organization grew up as a local project from people that simply said, this is our town, and we're not going to let you take over it. And everybody I see, we seem to have pride in our communities. Everybody wants good things to happen. And with cooperation of people like yourself and the dedication and Operation Our Town, it's going to happen, folks. I don't want to pick up the newspaper and see a drug dealer's picture in the front page. I want to see somebody that did something good. I want news that makes me smile. Sometimes after I read the newspaper in the morning and watch the morning news, I want to go back to bed. You say, what good's the rest of the day? And then I think, I know what good a day is. I can do something about it. And everybody has to think that way. We can do something about it. Put a smile on your face, hug the person closest to us, write out a check to Operation Our Town, put it in the mail, and go hug the nearest young person you can find. Thanks for your attention and for your participation, each of you. And we'll hope to see you next time on Operation Our Town.